The plane hummed gently as it cut through the sky, its engines steady against the night. Passengers leaned back into their seats, most of them lost in the comfort of dimmed cabin lights and whispered conversations. But in row 13, near the window, a young woman lay quietly asleep, her head resting against the glass as though she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. No one around her knew the battles she had fought, or the storms she had endured, nor could they guess that within a few minutes, everything in that cabin would change because of her. Before we go deeper into this journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the incredible strength of the human spirit, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Legends of History. Your support helps bring more powerful stories like this one to life, stories that remind us of resilience, love, and unexpected heroes. She was not the type of passenger who drew attention. Her hair was pulled into a simple ponytail, her clothes plain and worn, and her face carried the quiet fatigue of someone who had seen too much too soon. Life had not been kind to her. Once, years ago, she had dreamed of soaring skies and fearless adventures, but tragedy had clipped her wings. She had walked away from the very thing she loved most, flying. And though she never told anyone, the silence of the cockpit haunted her more than the noise of engines ever could. Tonight, she was just another traveler, tucked away in row 13 on a flight that was supposed to be routine. But fate rarely respects routine. The calm broke suddenly when the intercom crackled, and the captain's voice came through, heavy and urgent. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is anyone on board with flight experience, anyone who can fly an aircraft, please make yourself known. The cabin froze, heads turned, whispers rose, and fear spread like wildfire. Turbulence rattled the plane as if to underscore the seriousness of the moment. Children clutched their parents, elderly passengers clasped trembling hands, and strangers exchanged wide-eyed looks of disbelief. In row 13, the woman's eyes snapped open. Her pulse raced as the words echoed in her ears. For a split second, she wanted to hide, to pretend she hadn't heard, to stay buried in the anonymity of the crowd. But then the truth she had buried for so long clawed its way back to the surface: she was a pilot. Or rather, she had been. Her mind rushed back to the day everything had ended, the crash, the investigation, the endless nights replaying every second. She had sworn never to touch a cockpit again. Yet here, above the earth with nowhere to run, the world was asking for her once more. She sat frozen, trembling, torn between fear and duty. What if she failed? What if she wasn't enough? But as she glanced around at the terrified faces, the mother clutching her child, the old man whispering prayers, the young couple holding hands, something within her shifted. This wasn't about her past anymore. This was about saving lives. Slowly, she unbuckled her seatbelt. Row 13, once just another seat, had become the place where destiny demanded she rise. Her steps down the aisle felt like walking into a storm. Every gaze followed her, heavy with desperate hope. The crew rushed to meet her, eyes wide with disbelief when she whispered, "I can fly." The cockpit door opened, and the chaos within was unlike anything she had imagined. One of the pilots had collapsed from a sudden medical emergency, and the other was struggling to stabilize the plane alone. Oxygen masks dangled, alarms blinked red, and the horizon tilted outside the window in a way that made the heart stop. For the first time in years, she slipped into a pilot's seat. The weight of the yoke beneath her hands was both terrifying and familiar, like reuniting with an old friend after a painful separation. She steadied her breathing, forced her trembling hands to still, and began to remember the rhythm of flight. The co-pilot's frantic instructions melted into the background as instinct took over. The storm outside battered the wings, but she fought back with precision born of training and a will fueled by every soul on board. Sweat dripped from her brow, her arms ached with effort, and her heart raced as alarms screamed around her. Yet in that chaos, something inside her began to heal. For the first time since her darkest day, she wasn't trapped in fear, she was flying again. Minutes stretched into an eternity, but slowly, the aircraft began to stabilize. The turbulence eased, the alarms softened, and the horizon leveled out. The passengers in the cabin who had been clinging to each other in terror now felt the shift too, whispering prayers of relief as the plane steadied. She guided the aircraft with a strength she hadn't known she still possessed, and when the ground finally came into view, she knew what had to be done. Landing wasn't just about bringing the plane safely down, it was about proving to herself that she could. The runway lights glowed like beacons, and with every breath, she drew closer. The wheels touched the ground with a thundering roar, and though the landing wasn't perfect, it was safe. The plane slowed, the engines hushed, and the cabin erupted into sobs, applause, and sheer relief. She sat frozen in the cockpit, her hands still gripping the controls, her heart racing with disbelief. She had done it, not just for the passengers, not just for the crew, but for herself. She had faced the very thing she had run from for so long and found her wings again. When she finally rose from the seat and stepped back into the cabin, every eye turned to her. Strangers reached for her hand, whispered thank yous through tears, and embraced her as if she were family. For the first time in years, she didn't feel broken. She felt whole, and perhaps that was the real miracle. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Legends of History. Every bit of support helps us continue to bring you stories of courage, redemption, and the moments that remind us what it means to be human. Special request before we end: comment below what you would have done if you were in row 13. Would you have risen to the call? Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear it.